Welcome to this third virtual presentation of PCCV. It will be live streamed to Facebook and YouTube, and it will be there forever. So it doesn't matter if you're watching it now or in 3 weeks' time. It'll be excellent. Our guest speaker is Colin Stark of Alpine Affair fame, a true Aussie company that specialises in Peugeot servicing of cars. Our secretary, Tim, had correspondence saying that Euroa show is cancelled as per COVID-19. Peter Kerr is awaiting a firm date for the French Car Festival that will be in October-November. Neil Griffin has advised that the financials are finished and the club is in the black. David Jenkins has confirmed he is continuing to work on an outing in July. Editor Glenn Hall still needs more articles from everyone. Photos of you and your cars are especially wanted. Talk went to all members on email again and will continue, as well as hard copies to those who want. Colin Harris is continuing with his list of great guest speakers. Cars for sale. If you're looking to buy a second-hand Peugeot, this is what you should be looking at. They include a 206, a 307, a 306 XI, a 306 XSI, a 505, a 505 GTI, and that wonderful car, the 405 MI16. Hawkins Grounds parts. Numerous parts for sale for a 405. A 404 head gasket, a 403 front spring, a Puget PUG-ETT number plate, and headlights for a 504. Our next monthly presentation will be 7th of August, and the speaker will be John Needham of 203, 403 and 404 gearbox fame, as well as many, many other international brands. As you can see, we're in the midst of beautiful Peugeots. Look at this 203, beautifully prepared by Alan Horsley, and this 404. They are an absolute delight. Now, Colin, would you please do the honours?
Here we are at Colin Stark's house. It's getting very chilly. I think it's about to snow. We've got Alan Horsley, myself, Neil Beddoe, Lael, Col Stark and Tim Farmerlow.
Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy the show tonight. Good evening. I'm Colin Harris, and I've got Colin Stark here, who's going to tell us all about his affair with cars and how it all started. And I think that Colin will have a very interesting bit of history to tell us, and so I hope you enjoy this presentation. Thanks, Col.
Thanks, Colin. Hi to everybody. I have told this story before on the odd occasion, so I hope I'm not boring too many people. My working career started with William Adams tractors in design modifications on earth moving equipment, and when I started in that business, I was already a keen Renault fan back from about the age of 16. And one of the chaps I worked with at William Adams Tractors was a keen Renault fan, and after several years of discussion we decided to start a business of importing Alpine Renaults. He'd actually been overseas and bought a car and bought it in privately. I'd owned a Alpine Renault for a few years, and so we started a business. We scoured our brains for a suitable name, and my wife Lynn came up with this name. Why don't you call it Alpine Affair? You're so infatuated with those little cars. So the business name Alpine Affair became the name of the business. We imported 3 or 4 cars, and suddenly one day the exchange rate, this is before the euro was around, only one day the exchange rate changed from $1 buying 8 francs to $1 buying 4 francs, French francs. So basically the price of the cars doubled overnight, and that was, we were struggling to sort of achieve sales prices that we needed anyway, because all the cars had to be converted to right-hand drive back in those days. There's no laws to be able to drive left-hand drive cars. So we actually, we moved from a house that we were living in temporarily in Noble Park to some premises in 484 Whitehorse Road, Mitcham, and we started working on other French cars. We decided we'd specialise in French cars, and while we continued with the Alpines, we would start servicing and spare parts, that sort of thing, on Citroën, Peugeot and Renault. Right. After a couple of years there, the premises didn't really suit us. The parking was very bad, etc., etc. So we found a place in Ringwood, in Thanet Court, Ringwood, and we moved there in 1988. And incidentally, Sam, you're probably watching this or listening to this, Sam Mekaroff moved into our old premises and started Auto Paris. So from 1988 to approximately 2015, we were at Thanet Court, and parking again became a bit of an issue. We were renting the property off VicTrack, and I decided to buy a factory down in Pilgrim Court, and we spent 15 months at night and weekends, and we basically rebuilt the whole place, and we were very proud of what we had there, and fought like mad to try to keep it nice and clean and tidy and presentable and to people. Last year I was approached by a gentleman I knew, and he wanted to buy the premises and made me a good offer. I was 67 years of age, and I decided to, or 66 actually then, I decided, well, it's time, been doing this for a while, been doing it since 1985, so yeah, 33, or so what's that, 34 years running Alpine Affair, or as Alpine Affair, and it's time to maybe do some other fun things in life. Mind you, I will say that I'm very fortunate that my hobby and passion were French cars, particularly the Alpine Renaults, and basically when we started the business, it was just like a hobby. And I've sort of kept that feeling the whole time right up to when I retired, and I believe I was always passionate about all French cars. The other thing we did was back in about 1990, we became licensed motorcar traders, and there's maybe, I don't know if Rob's watching tonight, but Rob Cherry, but many years ago he referred me to as the Renault leaning Colin Stark. I hate to inform you, but I've owned, and you'll never own, as many Peugeots that I've owned. I've sold, as a licensed motorcar trader, we only sold French cars, and I'd say we sold over 2,000 used cars in that period, and I would say 70% of them were Peugeots. So I probably owned about 1,400 Peugeots. You have to try very hard, Rob. So I do have quite an affinity for these cars, the Peugeots. I've owned not really anything before a 404. We had a lot of 504 familiar wagons. We had 3 boys, so they served a great purpose with the 7 and 8 seats. And yeah, had a lot of Peugeots. Don't have one at the moment, although I've got a 208 sitting out there, which my wife actually would be keen to take over, because I've got her a bigger car and she doesn't like the bigger cars. So yeah, that's probably covers the Alpine Affair thing. Yeah. Alpine Affair is now operating out of Bayswater. Marty, who started his apprenticeship with me at the age of 16, I think he's about 43 now. He's bought the business and taken over, and he's got a massive amount of knowledge on these cars. Right. I would also really like to thank all my customers over all these years. I've had a great time. We've made a lot of friends, and yeah, it's been a terrific experience. Thank you.
And was Lynn, was she happy that you retired?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I sort of live out here in this shed. this shed, I've got so much stuff collected from over the years that had to build. I've always wanted to build a shed.
Yeah.
I suppose every bloke's always wanted to build a shed. Yes. So this is the shed that I've always dreamed of.
Right.
So this shed, we started building it in January, and it's a bit of an ongoing thing, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how old are you at the moment, Colin?
I'm 67.
67.
68
okay.
in November.
Yep. Right. And travelling plans when this COVID-19 is all finished?
Oh, probably maybe later in this little segment you might get a picture of the motorhome that's that down the end of the shed.
Yep.
We used it the week before everything was shut down.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, we had planned. We spent a week down at the Tidal River at Wilson's Prom, and if we hadn't been in isolation, I wouldn't have been able to achieve what I've achieved here in the last 3 months. So we're looking forward to getting out like everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did any of your boys go into the motor trade at all?
No. My eldest son worked with me part-time, but I've got 3 boys, and the eldest son worked with me part-time for quite a few years, but he's not a car buff.
Okay.
Other 2 sons are. Oldest son had his first car basically was a 205 GDI. The second son, first car was a 205 GDI. He's still got a 205 GDI. He's put MI16 engines in them. Third son's had 3 MI16s. He's put turbocharger on the rear muffler and turbocharged one from the back, and always been mucking around with stuff. So we've had a lot of experience with Peugeots, and
And being a Peugeot club, what's the easiest Peugeot to work on?
Look, all old cars are a cinch to work on.
Right.
You know, that's just not.
Until the computers came in.
Oh no, just the layout, the mechanical layout.
Okay.
Why don't you ask me what my favourite one is?
What is your favourite one?
I have got a very favourite Peugeot.
Yes.
My most favourite Peugeot is a 406.
Okay.
I think they're the most magnificent car.
Okay.
Lynn had I bought her a 406 coupe.
Yep.
It was only a couple of years old, and she still refers to it as her most favourite car.
Right.
My most favourite one was I sold a customer a 406 D8 V6 manual, and I traded it back in on a 407 HDI, and he was a really heavy smoker, and I tried everything to get the smoke smell out of this car, and I couldn't. So I drove it myself, and I drove it for years. I absolutely loved it, and finally a customer taught me to sell it to him, and he wrote it off 2 weeks later.
Oh no.
But I towed. The kids used to borrow it and tow trailer loads of wood. I think we had a 308 diesel at the time. My mother she was in a retirement village. If I went to take her out, I'd clean the old 406 up, clean it all up, and then I'd go, "What are you doing with it? What are you doing that to the car?" I said, "We're taking Mum out." So my most favourite model is 406, and HDI 406s are just a brilliant car.
Yeah. I remember reading in the magazine someone had one and was getting brilliant fuel consumption out of them.
Yep. Oh yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah, they're ridiculous. Even a petrol one.
Yeah. Okay.
Even a petrol one, because they're the sort of cars. Yes, they're the most relaxing car to drive. You don't overextend them. You don't make them guzzle fuel. Mm-hmm. Like a 406, just a 2 litre petrol, will do better fuel economy than the same engine in, say, a 306. It's just the way that they drove, and I had a customer up near Albury, and her 406, I sold her that car actually as well. Her 406 HDI came in at 760,000 Ks, and the top engine mount had broken, and it actually ended up taking the cam belt out. 760,000 Ks. We repaired the head. We fixed the head and did all that sort of stuff, and away it went. And she was going, I only need for another couple 100,000 Ks. I won't need a car after that. And this car, we'd never done a clutch or anything on it. It had it was getting close to 800,000 Ks when I last saw it.
Amazing.
Terrific car.
Right.
Yep.
Okay then. Well, what we'll do now, Colin, is we'll just have a little look around your workshop and your lovely vehicles. Is that
No
okay?
problem. Yeah, that's okay. No problems.
Okay, thank you.
Right, now this is the first car I'd like to talk about. Maybe not quite a car, but it's the bones there. It's a single backbone chassis, all fabricated. It basically runs rear engine Renault 10 R8 Gordini style transmission and suspension, a Renault 16 style engine, Renault 10 front suspension, and this was a very, very, very successful formula. And we're now going to go and have a look at what the car looked like. Okay, well this is what the car looked like. Much different than what you saw out there with its lovely set of clothes on. It's a Alpine A110. This particular car is a 1600S X-Works Group 4 car. It's a 1971. As you see, in 1971, they came 1, 2, 3 at the Monte Carlo Rally. They also won the World Rally Championship. It wasn't called that in 71, but they did win it, the first World Rally Championship with these cars in 1973. This car has 200 horsepower, it weighs 670 kilos, which makes it a very, very fast little car, but then I get in it. But so, it's a rear engine, as I showed over there, rear engine, 5-speed gearbox, all that sort of stuff. The most important thing about this car is, if you want to drive one and you don't know how to get into it, you won't be able to. So I want to demonstrate the technique. I actually did ask for a volunteer to try to get into it, but I'm not sure. Must be too many artificial hips and knees and whatever, and I couldn't raise one. So I'm over 6 foot tall. As you see, it's a tiny little car. And the way to get into this car is like so. There you go. Better turn the camera off now, we've got to get out. No, that's all right. Okay. So that's the technique. If you try any other way, you won't be successful. Head first. I've owned this car since 1976. It was in a horrible, horrible, horrible state when I got it. It had competed in the World Rally Championship and it had been destroyed. Because in those days, they were works drivers driving these cars, so all they really wanted to achieve was success for their name, and at the cost of the car was of no consequence to them, as long as it sort of kept going. This car here is my Clio V6, it's a 2004 model. It's a very, very rare car. I don't know if you can see here, but it's got air intakes on the side. It has a 3-litre V6 mid-mounted. Mid-mount, I don't know if you can see any of this, but it's all engine in the back here. And it was total production run from Renault for these cars was 700. This is one of 74 black ones and right-hand drive. And these were all bought to, there's probably about 10 of them in Australia. They've all been brought in as personal imports. They'll never sold here. So this particular car I've had for quite a while. It's only done 23,000 miles from new, and it's 14 or 15 years old. So I try not to overuse it. It's quite a collectible little car. This is the business end of the Clio V6. It's east-west, mid-engine, 3-litre V6, naturally aspirated. Is still the same engine that Peugeot and Citroën used in Peugeot's case, in like the D9 406 V6s and the 407s, that sort of stuff. So a lot of stuff relatively simple to get hold of, and yeah, as I said, it's quite a strange little car. This little car here is a Renault Dauphine Gordini. I had to have one because this was my first road car, not this particular one. I can't make claims like Bill Hamilton with his 404 as having the original car, but my first car was a Dauphine Gordini, but unfortunately I wasn't very kind on some of my first cars, and not too many of them survive today. I bought this car a number of years ago, and it's actually, instead of having an 850cc engine, it's got a 1600 Alpine engine. It's got a 5-speed gearbox. It's got 4-wheel disc brakes, and it's just a cute little car in my opinion, and it goes quite well. Ran it at Geelong Speed Trials a couple of years ago, and it won its class and scared the living daylights out of all the Escorts and Datsuns and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's quite a quick little car. This is the business end of the Dauphine Gordini. You see here I've got a 1093. There was a racing version that was built in France, so I bought one of those badges over, and I call it my little tribute 1093, but it's quite a bit bigger engine than the original one. There's the engine, 45mm Webers. It says it's got a 5-speed gearbox, disc brakes all round, and 1959, but with some 1970s upgrades. Okay, this car here is a Renault 8 Gordini. Not sure how many people realise, I know there'll be quite a few in the club, Graham Wallace, etc., that the Renault 8 Gordini won the Australian Rally Championship in 1970, beat every other car, Holden dealer team, Ford, everything. Bob Watson driving the Renault 8 Gordini took out the Australian Rally Championship. These are an incredible little car. They had 5-speed gearboxes, twin Weber 40 DCOEs, twin fuel tanks, a very unique little car. This is actually my youngest son's. He also has a fully restored one of these, which is just, it's not here, but it's absolutely beautiful. And these are a great little car. Only sold 50 of them in Australia, and are really very special. This is my Combi, and I've got a couple of Combi utes, not split windscreen. This is a split windscreen 1965. I had a Combi when I was about 23 or 22 or 23 years of age. This one's 100% dead stock, although since I've retired, I have converted from 6 volt to 12 volt. But everything else is dead stock. I've driven it, we take it away, we go away on events with some Volkswagen people, or Combi people, and we actually use this quite a bit. I've taken it up to northern New South Wales twice, Griffith, Tasmania for 2 weeks, and Malakuta, not this year, Malakuta last year, and it does quite a lot of miles, and it's a remarkable little car to drive. It's actually fun. Pretty slow, but fun.
How many K?
I think it's got 20-something thousand miles showing on the clock, so I don't know. But this is actually his original paint. This car is not restored. The original paint's got a bullet hole in the door down here. It's hard to see, but it's got a bullet hole there. I put my finger in, and it's the trim, everything's original, and it's just a gem. I've got 2 of these utes. They're both. This one's a bit sadder than the other one I've got. It's actually down at a paint shop at the moment. This is a one owner. Aristos, the bricklayer, owned this one, and I bought it off Aristos, and it's still got the original rego, and he'd smashed it in the front, and when I started poking around in here, I found plastic bags as filler and all sorts of stuff. So I've actually put a brand new nose on it as a complete brand new nose, which I put on it not so long ago. And in doing that, I had to push the front out about that far. It was sort of lots of bog. And my plan with this ute was actually to have it as a tow car for my Alpine. It's a 1971, same year as the Alpine, and that was going to be my plan, and hopefully one day that'll happen. Okay, this vehicle here is a Renault 5 Turbo, which is a bin engine car. They made close to 1,000 of these mid-engine cars back in the early 80s. They had fiberglass guards. The very early ones had aluminium doors and aluminium roof. But this particular car is a 1983. and this is called a Group B works car. They made 20 of these cars, and they differed from the original mid-engine Renault 5 by having Kevlar. It was before pre-carbon fibre, so Kevlar was the lightest material at the time. Kevlar panels. This one has lightweight aluminium doors, aluminium roofs, been popular around there, lightweight aluminium rear panels. This car was 320 brake horsepower, weighs 800 kilos, and was a 1.4 litre pushrod engine, which was originally fitted to the Renault 12, and it produced 320 horsepower. It was when Renault were in Formula One with the V6 turbos, and they were leading the forefront of technology with turbocharging, and they turbocharged the living bejesus out of this little car. They actually end up getting up to about 350 horsepower out of them. I found it in Wales, in the UK, in 1993. It was extremely badly smashed. I had all the bodywork done a long time ago, and I'm missing some mechanical bits. I'm now really keen to get this one going. You know, like it's, I don't know if I'll even be able to drive it. I think it'll be quite a scary car to manoeuvre. One of the club members has one of these, a road going version, Bill Hamilton. I sold that car to Bill, well, many years ago. I was trying to work it out the other day, but it was a long time ago. I remember we went to do the Speed on Tweed back in 2006, and Bill took that car, so he's had it since before then. And I took my Alpine. It was the first event I'd done in the Alpine since I'd restored it. And Bill's got one of these that, as is Bill, it's bloody fast. He took it to Geelong speed trials and put it down a quarter mile in, I think it was 12.6 seconds. And yeah, it's a real, and his is still original 1.4, but plenty of horsepower.